the kids are having a snack, we're gonna make a 1, 2, 3 bread starter for our very special dinner tonight. It's what everyone's craving. We're having pizza. We got mason jar, we got whole wheat flour, we're gonna have water and yeast. That's all you need. Bread starter is really, really simple. It is equal parts flour and water with a little bit of yeast. You don't want a lot. This is not what's making our bread rise. This is gonna give our bread amazing flavor and help begin the gluten development. So 1 cup. 2 cup. I'm doing this so that way it's a little easier to funnel in. Not the end of the world. Keep it going. We have our instant yeast. I like using instant yeast. Makes everything super easy. This is the brand I got. I think you can find it on Amazon or your local restaurant distributor. It's about $5 a pound from the restaurant distributor. We'll do, that's actually too much. 1 teaspoon would have been enough. Let's put that back. And now we're gonna mix this up. Distribute that yeast. That's standard procedure for instant yeast. And add 1 pint of water. That's 16 ounces, 2 cups. We can't quite fit it all, but once we mix it all together, the flour is going to absorb a lot of that water. This will rise, so keep an eye on it. And you don't even need to make it perfectly smooth. It can be totally lumpy. That's okay. All this is for is to let the yeast start working, get a little sour, and give us that awesome bready flavor that we're looking for later this evening. Okay? See? That's it. Let's check it out in, I don't know, 6-8 hours. Oops. This is what our starter looks like after 5 hours. Maybe I should have picked a bigger vessel. Well, either way, this is pretty cool. You can see how the yeast made our starter rise, but more than that, looking through the translucent side of our glass, you see those bubbles. That's pretty awesome. Our yeast has actively been fermenting, making our starter, first of all, sour, more acidic, flavorful, and all over the place. So I'm going to clean this up, punch it down, and let it keep going for another few hours. Adding 4 cups of white bread flour. 2, 3, 4. This is approximately 22 ounces. It's between 5.5 and 6 ounces by weight of flour per cup. Next, we're gonna add our salt. About a teaspoon. We're gonna add our yeast. Another give or take teaspoon. We're using instant yeast. Now, the longer you're gonna let your dough rest, the less yeast you need. Now, we're in a rush. It's dinner time. We want pizza. So we're gonna add a little extra yeast to make it rise a little faster. 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons of sugar. This is also to make the yeast rise faster. Even though it's in a stand mixer, take a hand whisk this together to incorporate. Now we can add our liquids. 12 ounces of water. Now if you're doing a pan pizza, you can add more, but if for a hand stretched pizza, you need 1.5 ounces of oil. For a pan pizza, you can go up to 1/2 cup. And now, lastly, we need our yeast starter that we started earlier today. This is our yeast starter. I hope I didn't mispronounce that again. We started this earlier today. You'll see the mess on my counter. Yeah, so we have a little less than we started with. This is equal parts by volume, whole wheat flour and water mixed in with about a teaspoon of that instant yeast that we used. It smells really yeasty. That's great. This is gonna give us amazing flavor in our dough. So we're gonna add 1 cup of this. It's gonna be floppy and sloppy, and that's great. This is funky stuff. Now, hopefully this dough is gonna be a little bit wet. It's easier to add flour than it is to add moisture. So just for insurance, I'm gonna add another tablespoon of water. Ready? Let's let it rip. Okay, I want you to take a look at this. Just take a good look at the texture of that dough. Everything is more or less wet, and it's still pretty soft and tacky, but this is unneeded. You can see there's lumps and that texture here, like you can see it tearing, there's holes. We're gonna knead that through, and we're gonna take another close look at this once it's all well kneaded. Yo! That looks awesome. Okay, let's take a small piece of dough. We're gonna form it. Okay? Notice how the dough is smooth. It'll still tear, all doughs will tear. If we would let it relax, like leave this alone for 10 minutes, you'll be able to stretch this to be paper thin, translucent. A shortcoming about using whole wheat flour is that the shards of fiber will cut through the gluten matrix. You can see it's translucent before it tears. So, tearing is due to our impatience. Let's get pre-shaping. Pizza dough needs to be cut and pre-shaped into rounds. Otherwise, when it comes time to stretch your dough, it'll be too tight, just like a sore muscle. When you first pull it, it's really hard to move. It might even be physically hard, like you push on it, you can feel it being sore with your fingers. Dough and gluten is the same way. When it's freshly kneaded and played with, the gluten is really hard to stretch. But as you let it relax, the gluten will lose its tenseness and then be able to stretch. 2 big pizzas, 3 medium pizzas. There you go. Now we have our oven preheating to 425. We are going to stretch one of these to be a pan pizza, and we're going to shape everything else to be a boule to rest on our counter. The pan pizza can rest and rise in the pan. You want to let that rise like almost like you would a regular loaf of bread. Pizza, what we're doing is we're letting this dough rest to relax the gluten. We don't really care so much about it rising. It will rise slowly, and that will make our stretching it a little bit easier. There you go, 1, 2. This motion is something that you will pick up with a little time. You cup your hand like this, go over it, and then you form it into a circle by pressing down. You want a little flour on your hand to keep it from sticking to all your fingers, but not too much, otherwise it won't form that circle and seam on the bottom. Okay, last one. This is gonna be our pan pizza, but we're gonna still do the same thing. There, circle, seam. See? Little flour. Now, I make my pan pizzas in this. Cast iron. I oil with olive oil. I like to add a little extra salt to my crust on the bottom. Okay, a lot of salt. Rub that in. Now, take your dough. right in the middle. And start your stretching. Don't be afraid. We're not going to get this so thin. The oil is going to help us out. Oil is going to coat the bread, the dough. We're going to get thinner and thinner and thinner. It doesn't have to quite reach the edges. The rise will take care of that. Turn it over. Now you'll see this skillet pizza, pan pizza, we're gonna start it on the stove. The skillet is gonna get super, super hot. We're gonna see it bubbling and sizzling and hear it sizzling. And only then will we put it in our oven. The result is a super thick, crispy crust. 4 pizza doughs resting, play elevator music. Okay, we got some garlic, we got a can of sauce. Let's finish this thing. I like using straight crushed tomatoes. Nothing added, no herbs, no seasonings. We want our flavors as fresh as possible. So we're gonna add fresh garlic, salt, and dry oregano. If you have fresh basil, like to tear it and add it straight to the pizza. We're going to be using some Nerdy Dad basil pesto. So I like a fine mince, and then we're going to salt and crush it. We use the little grains of salt to help cut through the pieces of garlic. This helps distribute it through the tomato sauce. Don't like the flavor of fresh raw garlic? Don't worry. We're going to bake this pizza, so the garlic's going to cook through. That looks pretty good. It's a decent garlic paste. It seems a little salty to me, so I'm not going to use all the garlic. That might be too much for this can. I think that's probably a tablespoon of salt that went on there, so we're going to try to get about 3/4 of this batch. That will leave, that will put in. Now, open the can the way you like. So far, that can opener has been my favorite. Okay, the garlic we're using, straight in. No need to add any more salt. I have way too much oregano. Take a 3-finger pinch, toss it in. The last thing you can do, which is totally optional, is a drop of soy sauce. I'm not going to use any today, but that totally brings the tomato sauce over the top. Utensil, stir. I mix until I see the oregano distributed throughout. And then we're done. Our pizza sauce is ready to go. Our dough is almost ready to go. Now let's find the pizza cheese. Now that we're done with the sauce, come here, I want to talk to you about cheese. So we're going to be using part skim mozzarella. That's what we have. If you like whole milk, go for whole milk. But I'm going to add one caveat to that. I love Parmesan on my pizza. Who doesn't love Parmesan? But I don't really keep so much Parmesan around. It's expensive, it doesn't really go that far, and I eat way too much of it when it's here. But I have something that is almost as good as Parmesan. The flavor is much more concentrated, you don't need to use as much, and it's not so tempting. It's veggie Parmesan. I'm not endorsed by this brand, so I'm not going to show it, but if you have vegan Parmesan, try it. You will not be disappointed. It's amazing. It really tastes, smells, feels like the real deal, and you will kick everything up another point or two. Now, back to pizza. I think we're ready to shape. Wow, look at how soft that is. Can you see? The divots are sticking. Well, if I poke it, my fingerprint stays lodged in the dough, which if I was proofing bread, I would say this is nowhere near done, But for the pizza we're about to throw, this is really what we're going for. Can I bring this closer? Yeah. Pinch of flour. When you're shaping the dough to boules, to the rounds, you don't want a lot of flour. Now that we're going to shape it into pizza pies, we want lots of flour. That's going to keep us from sticking to our pizza stone. Don't have a pizza stone? Well, use a pan. But you're definitely going to need something to bake your pizza on. Okay. We have the rough shape of almost a circle. Stretch it with your hands, grabbing opposite sides and just pressing down into the counter lightly. This is a slow process. It won't take us very long, but we're looking for like micro steps. You're not going to pull it to full size on your first stretch. Rather, we want a bunch of little stretches to get us where we want to go. And once you're good at it, this is totally mindless. You won't even think about having to go around the whole pie in a circle, pulling the crust just a little thinner and a little thinner and a little thinner. And if you focus on one side for too long, that'll be super thin and the rest of it's going to be like monstrously thick. So a little extra flour on top. As you stretch it, you're exposing more of the inside of the dough ball, which doesn't have any flour on it, so it could stick. Okay, this looks done. This is just about the size of my pizza stone. Let's head over there. We're going to see how to finish this pizza. The oven is set to 425. It's been preheating. This is a pizza stone. If you don't have a pizza stone, what you should do is you should have a pan in the oven the same size as what you're baking on and stretch your pizza out to another size pan. That way you'll stack them one on top of the other and the bottom pan will have the residual heat of the oven in it, so that's going to help bake your pizza through. Lay the pizza out directly on the stove. You're going to hit it with what seems like too much sauce. And I like to put my sauce all the way to the edge. Why? Isn't that a waste? No, not at all. The sauce is what carries a lot of the flavor. And so there's very little seasoning in the crust. So by pushing the sauce out past where the cheese is going to go, the crust is going to have a huge amount of flavor. Even your kids are going to want to eat it. It needs to be covered, not pretty. Next up, the cheese. You want to do the cheese in a circular pattern from the edge towards the middle. Don't believe me? Practice making a few pizzas. The middle is the easiest spot to cover. The edge, that takes some talent. So take your time, take small pinches, and work your way from the edge to the middle. Finally, our vegan Parmesan. A few shakes of this. That's what we're going for. Okay, we'll be back in a few minutes to pull this out. It's pizza time! Okay, the crew has arrived for pizza pie. Come this way.
Mommy, I want to girls have pretty hair.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. That's how you do it. Yes, this is a cutting board. Yes, this is a band pizza tray. This is how we roll. And that's the pan pizza that's about to go on the stove. Fire on. A minute or two, we'll set our pan to lightning hot, then we can chuck it in the oven. You hear and see that sizzle? Let's get in there. Yeah. Okay. Now it's ready to go in the oven. While that was going, I made another pizza that's on the stove. I'm gonna go right in. Yeah!
If you want to change your order from 5 to 10 of the next.
Okay. Now, depanning one of these is also a skill in itself. For those of us that haven't had the pleasure of working in a pizza joint, what I like to do is take a knife, go around the edge, and try to loosen it up a little bit. Now that it's all loose, oh, that's nice.
Really hot. Why?
See, it's a little bit thicker. You can go as thick as you want to, all the way up the sides of the pan, or paper thin. And when you cut it, it is absolutely awesome. The super hot pan gives it an extra crispy crust that any oven can handle.
With the pizza, the slide off.
Now there's only one thing left to do.
Like this, will the
First of all, eat all these,
slide off.
but if you look up,
No, if it's sideways.
oh, we have these two beautiful balls of dough. What are we gonna do with them? We worked so hard on these, we couldn't possibly let these go to
It's
waste.
like a wall.
So the first thing you can do is put them in a plastic bag in the fridge, turn them into pizza tomorrow.
Like this.
The other thing you can do is use these to make a new dough. Treat these just like you would a sourdough starter. Add these to your dough, leave them out, let them ferment overnight. They're gonna get funky, sour, and delicious.
And
it's gonna add big flavor to your next dough. Thanks for joining us on the Nerdy Dad, where we bring food science to your family.
Dough.